Hello. Let's take a look at my new plugin Coastline and specifically do a deep dive on this sustainers menu. You can think of Coastline as a kind of weird looper. It's going to capture audio and it's going to play that audio back. But rather than just looping audio, it's going to kind of resynthesize that audio and turn it into an infinite and stretched version of it. So, when we talk about a sustainer, we're basically talking about a loop. Now, in Coastline, we record a new sustainer every time the input reaches this threshold. The first thing to know in the sustainers menu is that we have a readout of what is going on for each sustainer here on this little mixer. You can see when I make a recording, we're going to see a dot appear for that sustainer. The dot will be orange when a recording is happening, and it'll be a solid white when it's just sustaining indefinitely. Now, in Coastline, we don't have a traditional ADSR for changing how sustainers enter, how long they're held, and how they exit. Instead, we have three controls for that. The first is fade in. This is going to choose how long it takes a sustainer to fade in. And you can probably expect that fade out is going to control how long it takes to fade out. By default, these controls are linked together for a kind of symmetric response. But if you want to decouple them, we can enable fade out to function separately. That can be nice if you want things to enter quickly, but kind of fade out over time, or if you want them to enter really gradually and then just kind of cut off at some point. Once you have a sustainer running, the length of time that it'll run is defined by the hold time. By default, a sustainer will run forever until it's replaced or until you delete it. But if you want to select a particular time, for example, 5 seconds, then the sustainer will only run for 5 seconds. So let's hear it fade in over 3 seconds, and then we're going to hold for 5, and then fade out pretty quickly. So this is how we can kind of shape where or how long sustainers take to enter, exit, and how long they get held. We can also choose how long the recording that each sustainer will be based on. You can make this really short if you kind of just want to capture like individual notes or chords. By default, I think 3 seconds is nice just to kind of capture a decent phrase or something that might be a little bit more melodically interesting. We can change the number of sustainers that can possibly run at once here. If you want to have a really simple sound, maybe just one complementary voice going along in the background, this is a great place to do that. Or if you want to get really complex and have as many as 5 sustainers running, you can do that as well. You can see any change that we make here is also reflected on this mini mixer here. So let's talk about the mixer now. This is where you can kind of really dial in the sound of each sustainer. We can set their volume and we can set their pan. This can be nice if you have a particular sustainer that you really like and maybe you want it to kind of stand out against the rest. And in addition, below the mixer, we have these options to lock sustainers or solo them. So one of the things that I really like to do with Coastline is a lot of times I will start by setting up one sustainer as a drone to just kind of be the backdrop of everything. Maybe that's the tonic of the key. I can clearly see there's only one sustainer running, but if you had multiple, you could solo it to figure out which is which. So at this point, I like to lock this first sustainer, and I'm going to consider this my drone. Given that it's a drone, I might want to make it a little louder than the rest, or I can make the other sustainers a little quieter. So I've got my one locked sustainer running, and now I think it's fun to just kind of have other sustainers that are going to kind of come and go as you continue to play a little bit of content. And we can hear throughout all of that, we had this one locked sustainer that continued to run, which I think can be a really nice counterpoint. If you want to make this a bit more interesting, you could also even create two sustainers that are going to be locked. So maybe you want to hold a fifth. Oops. So now we've got two sustainers that are being held forever and two sustainers that will kind of come and go. Now, another thing that I like to do here is we can actually modulate the pan amounts. So I'm going to grab an LFO and I'm going to assign it to the pan of each of the kind of transient sustainers. If we do two different LFOs, we can kind of get some interesting kind of phasing effects and just a really nice like swirling thing going on. So let's now record into our two transient sustainers and just kind of hear the effects of the pan. And this might be a kind of extreme effect, so we can dial in how much we want the sustainers to pan around over here. And that can be nice just to kind of get a little bit of motion, a little bit of kind of swirling effect. We can also use jitter instead of an LFO. If we want this to just kind of move around randomly rather than on some kind of repetitive basis. And I think this is really fun just because we can use this to start building up something pretty interesting and I think cool from a sound design perspective without even really touching the rest of Coastline. I think you can do a lot just with this mixer and a little bit of modulation. So this is the sustainers menu, and I'm going to be doing a few more of these videos for each of the different engines and the effects in Coastline. So stay tuned for that. All right, take care.